Alright, good morning, everyone. Let's see if we can get a link to this. Sorry, we cannot update your video. And there we go. Alright, so we're going to talk today about... So there's a link to the YouTube stream if you can't watch it on Discord. Okay, so welcome to week 2, day 2 of Computer Science 1. Today we're going to be talking about theories of truth. And so there's different notions of what it means for something to be true. It's funny, one person has the name Doubt Everything. Trust no one, believe no one. I mean, you shouldn't be so degenerate, you know, but the truth of the matter is, you know, it's something to think about. It's something to consider. Is like, you know, what does it mean for something to be true? So the
I have a question.
You have a question, yeah?
So Tuesday and Thursday are your video game classes.
Yeah.
And the rest of your classes are programming?
Yeah, this one, I guess we're going to do programming in this one. Sure. A little bit, yeah.
Can you show them my creation?
Oh, crap. I got a lecture.
Okay.
So, one of the great questions in philosophy is what it means for something to be true. Okay. And so this class, we did truth tables last time, and we can probably do truth tables again today. But let's get into like what it means for something to be true first. Right? There's a whole branch of philosophy on this. It's called epistemology, and so you're getting the one-day version of an entire field. Okay. So, what does it mean for something to be true? So, right. So, you know, here's a statement by a guy named Clausewitz, who said that war is the continuation of politics by other means. War is the continuation of politics by other means. Do you think this is true? Is this a true statement? That war is the continuation of politics by other means? What does that mean? Post it on the Discord channel. I mean, it's in a book, it must be true, right? In fact, I've got his book on war around here somewhere. Would it be a person's truth? Is it truth? Is it a general truth? Is it true for him? What does it mean to be true? Is it true that war is a continuation of politics by other means? What do you guys think? How does the work we do save? I'm not following. You're going to spread your philosophies and everything to other countries, so you do it by war. Okay. I think true, but it's based on opinion. Okay. What does it mean that war is the continuation of politics by other means? Let's say it's true, but it differs per person, so it's true for you, but maybe not for me, that kind of thing. I think a personal truth. War is usually the result of an ideological clash. Okay. Wars are brought on by political views, so I'd say it's true. Or, you know, when you try to achieve something by politics and it fails, then you can advance your political goals via war, right? So, Second Iraq War, you know, the U.S. said we want to inspect your country for weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein's like, go to hell. And so we ended up going to war with them over WMDs that may or may not have actually existed. Okay. War is people trying to force their own ideas on others via violence. Okay. Good morning. Since I couldn't do it through words alone. Okay. So, Yeah, it's a tricky situation. Clausewitz is also the guy who invented the term of the fog of war. If you guys ever played any video games that have fog of war in it, it means you can see the area around your troops, but you can't see things further away. And so that's not exactly a good use of the term, the way that Clausewitz wrote it. Basically, he noted that generals have to make decisions based on partial, imperfect, contradictory information, and this is something that people don't like to deal with, right? People like to not be wrong. But the trouble is, in the real world, right now we got a pandemic going on, right? And so a rather famous example would be hydrochloroquine, right? That about a year ago, a French team published a study saying the hydroxychloroquine reduces the severity of COVID-19. And so, people were like, okay, well, maybe it works. There's this study, and then other studies came out saying it has absolutely no effect. And so, you've got this issue of like, okay, let's say you're coming down with COVID-19. Do you my dad was like, if you get sick, I'm gonna drive down to Tijuana, I'm gonna cross the border, get you some hydroxychloroquine, and give it to you, so that you don't get severe COVID-19. And I'm like, Dad, the only evidence that I've seen of hydroxychloroquine,
was outside?
it's crazy raining right now. Yeah.
And I think the glacier's boat is on the loose.
Ooh, that's not good.
I saw this boat in front of their house, and it was just floating there.
Okay. I'll
No one in it.
I'll take a look later. Well, this PowerPoint will be on canvas, yeah, sure. But here's the thing, right? So you've got contradictory information, right? And there were also studies that were like, people that have higher levels of vitamin D have less severe COVID-19, right? And then, but it's not clear. And so when you're actually in a moment, when you're actually in a situation where like there's different people saying different things, and the science isn't clear, you've still got to make a decision, okay? You've still got to you still got to choose. Are you going to supplement vitamin D or not? Are you going to take hydroxychloroquine or not? What is the right move to make? And it's not clear. And people hate this. People hate the fact that, 100 years from now, we'll all know, what the right answer was, and people 100 years from now will look back at people today and be like, haha, look at these morons. They thought that vitamin D stopped COVID-19, or haha, look at these morons. They thought vitamin D didn't stop COVID-19. And the reality of the situation is right now, we don't know. There seems to be evidence that it does work for it. And so I've been supplementing vitamin D. Yeah, because I figure, well, I'm not exactly getting a lot of sunlight right now. Anyway, it's been gloomy for a while, so, I'll take some vitamin D, And so but I honestly don't know if it'll make any difference whatsoever. But, the cost of vitamin D is negligible, and it's possible I might need vitamin D anyway, so, right? So, yeah, and so that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that, people want to wait until there's a clear answer to things, but oftentimes you're gonna have to wait too long, right? Like, let's say that if you had taken vitamin D in the meantime, it would have saved your life, right? Or maybe if you had taken vitamin D in the meantime, I don't know, you'd have gotten kidney stones or something from taking too much vitamin D or something, right? You guys understand what I'm getting at? Like, the world is a complicated, messy place, and some things become clear in hindsight, but when you're in the moment, it could be tricky. So, So what about this statement? There is no truth, only power. What do you guys think of that one? What do you guys think of? What do you guys think of that statement? Is it true? Is it true? False? True? False? Yes, because with power you can make your certain points true, right? Shoot everybody that disagrees with you. Therefore, whatever you said is true, right? False. There's truth. There's truth even if you know, a totalitarian state says otherwise. You can alter truth to gain power. Yeah. Those who control the present control the past. Those who control the past control the future. Yeah, kind of stuff. What was it? Those who control, those who control the present control the past, right? That because you can rewrite history, and those who control the past control the future, because based on what our experience with history is, then that'll control how we react going forward. So that'd be a similar statement along those lines. If you have power, then you can convince it's true. Yeah. So, again, it's like, some of you are saying true, some of you are saying false. All right, so it's, some people would say these kinds of statements aren't true. Like, they're not false either. They're just, they're not true or false. They're just opinions. Right? And so there's a huge amount of debate. It's a very complicated issue. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Is that, like the Clausewitz statement, some people agree with it, some people disagree with it, some people say it's true, some people agree with it but say it's just an opinion, it's not necessarily true, and it gets sticky. It gets sticky. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so sentence. A proposition is really, I should have used the term proposition here, is a sentence that can be true or false. Sometimes statements are used interchangeably with that. Not all grammatically correct. Not all grammatically correct English statements are propositions, right? This is a grammatically correct English statement, but it's neither true nor false, right? Because there's no such thing as a robble or a flues or a wit, right? And to know something, like I know that my bottle of vitamin D pills here is mostly white and green. I know this. It's normally held, if I know something, that means that it's true. It means that it's justified. I have evidence for it. And it's a belief that I have. So this is the sort of classical definition of what it means to know something. Okay? So it's a true, justified belief. It is a belief that I have. I actually honestly do believe this bottle of pills is white and green. It's justified. I've got evidence for it. We talked last time about evidence for something, whether or not I was wearing a purple shirt or not, on the video. The actual shirt color is like a dark navy. And so, arguably, that is a kind of purple, or maybe not. I don't know. Depends what you think about navy. And it's a belief. It's something you actually believe. And so, when you know something, classically speaking, it's a true. You can't trick us now. Of course I can. Of course I can. I got a whole semester to do this. Right. And so this is classically the definition of knowledge. What it means to know something. And so, give me an example in chat of different ways you could know something. Like here, I'm, just I'm making an observation right now, right? And so, that's a pretty obvious way of knowing something. What are some other ways you can come to know something, right? Experience it yourself, deduction, reading. He has the power of a professor. Uh, witness an event. Experiments, research, observation, experience, trust, education. Okay, so prior experience. Okay. Do you guys know that 2 plus 2 is 4? Okay, so you know that 2 plus 2 is 4. Cool. Did you know that through, observing? Have you ever seen the number 2? You've seen 2 apples and 2 more apples. But have you ever, seen this abstract thing called 2? Yeah. And if you're like, all right, well, we can determine that 2 plus 2 is 4 through experiment. Let me blow your mind a little bit. I can prove to you that the square root of 2 is irrational. This is a classic proof that the Greeks came up with over 2,000 years ago. Okay? It's not done through experiment. It's done through mathematical proof. You can literally prove that the square root of 2 must be irrational. In other words, there is no fraction of one integer over another integer that could possibly equal the value of square root of 2. Okay. And I know that to be true, but I didn't know that through any of the things you guys said there. Not through research, not through observation, not through experiment, not through, what else did you guys say? Trust, I guess education technically, but how did they first know that the square root of 2 is irrational? How do they do that? You've seen the character 2? Is that like from a video game or something? You've seen the written thing for 2? Right. Well, I mean, the symbol is arbitrary, right? So, right. So that's 2 in Chinese, Japanese, right? There's 3. A little bit awkward. There's 4, right? So the symbol actually doesn't matter. The symbol, we'll have a whole lecture on symbols at some point, but it's a symbol pointing out a concept, right? So the symbol on the left here is 3. The symbol on the right here is 4. It doesn't matter how you write it. It's the concept that matters, right? How do we know that it's true? Yeah, how do you know that that number means 3? I could be lying to you. Does anyone here speak Chinese or Japanese? I think Koreans use the same numbering system. Can confirm. It is I had a Japanese class last semester. So people have confirmed that what I'm saying is the truth. Okay, so now do you know it? They could be lying. All these students that is agreeing with me here, they could be lying. It could be a vast conspiracy to convince you that these numbers, these random symbols that I'm writing are numbers. Okay. So how do you, so if you haven't studied Chinese or Japanese or Korean, so one way you could know this to be true is, well, your professor's telling you, and people on Discord are agreeing that these are the correct symbols. So do you know this now? Or is your professor a fundamentally untrustworthy individual? You'll never believe because of the purple shirt last time. This class is going to give you more trust issues. Well, I mean, but that's the whole thing, right? Is like how do you actually know something? Like your professors and teachers have been teaching you things your entire life, and some of the things that they teach you are true, and some of them are just wrong, right? And so you think that you know something, but then it turns out you didn't know it because it was not actually true, right? Classic example of that is that in math they teach you that 5 divided by 0 is 0. In elementary school, when they first teach division, they'll teach that, right? and it's, you know, and then later on, people are like, no, it's not zero, right? It's undefined, right? Or can be, you know, if you're in really advanced math, I think there's, you know, different answers to that you might accept. But the point is, like, a lot of times your teachers will oversimplify things. I'm going to be oversimplifying things this entire semester. You know, I'm fitting an entire field into one lecture today, right? It's by, you know, there's going to be oversimplification. It's going to happen, right? But at the same time, it's not very useful to say, I don't know anything, right? To go through life never committing to something. If you go through life never committing to something because you might be wrong, then you have this very timid approach where you never believe anything, you never committed to anything, just because you're so afraid of being wrong. You just are like, I don't know, you know. So I couldn't tell you, but I'm going to trust your word because you have the power of the professor. Sure, yeah. And so if you believe you should trust me on this number thing, then that is a true justified belief. Because as it turns out, if you do go onto Wikipedia, you could verify this. Of course, Wikipedia could be lying too. So. Wikipedia in general, I would say, is pretty good on issues like this. On issues that have any sort of political dimension to them, Wikipedia is garbage. I was looking up some things about a week ago that had political dimensions to them, and they lock down the pages, and you know, it's a giant mess. Wikipedia is a giant mess for anything political. Okay, so yeah, all right. Let me erase the things here. Yeah, so the two main schools of thought, there's actually three, but there's two that we're going to be talking about in this class, of knowing something. And so most of you guys, when I asked you how you could know something, most of you guys gave this answer. Okay. So a posteriori means things you learn through experience and observation. So I know that this bottle of vitamin D supplements is white and green because I observed it. And you guys now know that it is white and green because you have both heard me tell you that it's white and green, and you can see it for yourself on the video stream, although you might not be trusting my video stream's colors anymore. That's a giant school of thought, or a giant way of knowing things called a posteriori. Okay, it's the basis of science, right? Science involves going out and making observations and drawing conclusions based on the observations you make and things like that. It's empiricism. You know, if you want to know how many legs an ant has, you go out there and you observe a bunch of ants. You're like, all right, all of these guys have 6 legs. A few of them had accidents at 5 legs, but we're going to say in general they have 6. You know, 99% of them have 6 legs. Okay. A posteriori means after the fact. It means after experience. And that's the kind of default way that people think that you know things. But there's also another giant school of thought called a priori. A priori means before experience, before going out and observing the world. A priori knowledge can be done from the comfort of your home. You can sit on your comfy chair at home and think about things and know them to be true without having to observe them. And so the two kind of big schools of thought that are a priori would be math and logic. Okay, so math, if I can, you know, if I understand what it means to be an integer, and an integer is like a whole number like 1, 2, 3, 4, I can prove to you that the square root of 2 is irrational. And I can prove that to you without going out, without ever observing the square root of 2. In fact, if you do observe the square root of 2, it doesn't help. Because observing, like if you make a square and take the diagonal, the length of that is the square root of 2, right? If you, no matter how precisely you measure it, you will measure a rational number. You will not measure an irrational number. You cannot prove this through observation and experiment. The only way you can prove it is through reason. Okay? So a priori means proving something through thinking about it. To know something by thinking about it. Okay? And logic, like the truth tables, you can make a truth table for x ANDed with y, ORed with z, that kind of stuff. You can know what the whole thing is for every possible combination of x, y, and z by making a truth table. That is an a priori means of knowledge. Okay? So math and logic are the two big areas we use a priori. You can also know things are true simply through definitions, right? So a bachelor typically means an unmarried man. Traditionally means that. I don't know what a Bachelor of Science is then. Bachelor of Science, you're unmarried. I mean, do you lose your bachelor's degree if you get married? I don't know. But if you have definitions for things, and you have a set of definitions, then you can prove that there can be no such thing as a married bachelor. If somebody says, I am a married bachelor, and bachelor means an unmarried man, then the person's lying, right? If somebody says, I'm a married bachelor, then they're lying to you. Or if somebody says they've observed a triangle with 4 sides, right? A triangle is something that has 3 sides, a polygon with 3 sides. If they said, I observed a 4-sided triangle. No, you didn't, right? The a priori, the a priori is, you just prove it through a reason. Like, no, you didn't observe a 4-sided triangle. Triangles have 3 sides. You observed a polygon that had 4 sides, maybe, that kind of looked like a triangle, but it's not. I can guarantee you do not see a 4-sided triangle. If you got divorced, did you lose half your degrees? No, you get it back, right? Because a bachelor is somebody who's unmarried. So if you get married, then you lose your bachelor's of arts or bachelor's of science, right? It's called an equivocation fallacy. We'll get to those later. And so, where would deductive reasoning lie? Deductive reasoning would be part of a priori, right? But a lot of times, we'll use both, right? And so, can both be valid? Yeah, right. And so if you say, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. This is a classic deductive argument. All men are mortal, premise. Socrates is a man, premise. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Through logic and through reason, we can know that this is what's called a valid argument. The logic is correct, but we don't know if it's sound. And so it's sound if the premises are also correct. So is it true that all men are mortal? Is it true that Socrates is a man? If those premises are true, then the conclusion is true also. If the premises are false, then it's what's called a valid but not sound argument. And so oftentimes we will combine logic and observation. Yeah, good question, Alex. Are colorblind people allowed to make observations on color? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a really good question, and that's actually what I was actually getting at last time with my shirt color and the camera, because the camera actually did eliminate the color of my shirt. What if you're observing light through colored smoke? How confident are you're observing the color of the light versus the color of the smoke? You know what I mean? And so observation, a lot of people prefer a posteriori. A lot of that was the answer that most of you guys gave there. Is I know something is true through observing it, but you could be wrong with your observations. And to a certain extent, a priori is more certain, right? Because if somebody says, "Hey, I observed a 4-sided triangle," you could just be like, "Nope, you didn't." I am more certain you did not observe a 4-sided triangle than you can be certain that you did observe one. You know what I mean? So, but observation is the basis of all science, right? Like, science is an observation-based discipline. and science has given us cell phones and computers and things like that. So it's not like they're really in conflict with each other. Some people think they are. Some people are like, no, science is the only way to know something, and you know, and then some people say, you know, reason is the only way to know things. And my personal take is study both, dude. Study both. A square is only two triangles together. You know, learn both in my opinion, because the two of them get used together, right? But unfortunately, you have people like Bill Nye saying the only way you can really know something is by observing it, and it's like, well, you know, I know what you're getting at, but you know, there's some things that we absolutely know to be true that you can't prove through observation. Okay, so let's get into the heart of the lecture today. This is what you guys will be tested on your midterms and finals, and I might throw up a quiz on this. I might give you guys a quiz on these 5 theories of truth. There's actually more theories of truth than 5, but we're going to go over the 5 big ones. But he's Bill Guy, the science guy. I know, he's not Bill Guy, the logic guy, so, you know, maybe he's excused for that. I don't know. But, like, you know, anything in history you cannot observe, right? Like, you can't, like, how many wives did Henry VIII have, right? We know about it from history, and arguably, you know that Henry VIII had, what was it, 5 wives or something like that. You know it, but you can't observe it. You know, you can't test it. It's not science, right? You can't replicate it, right? It's just, you have people that have written down things, and you know, they could be wrong. You know, he could have had a secret, you know, 6 wives. Sorry. Yeah, people could be wrong about it, right? So, it doesn't match cleanly into this sort of Bill Nye, like, the only way you can know things is science. Is like, right? You don't have a time machine. If you had a time machine, you know, if you had a magic school bus, then sure, right? Okay. So let's talk about the theories of truth. And so people will argue vociferously over these things. And I'm just going to present them right now, and then I'll ask you guys which one you like the best. And there's, I'm not going to, say which one's right, because, you know, I don't think it's as simple as that. Okay. But I'll just ask, I'll present them, and then I'll ask you guys which ones you like the best. Okay. So the first is the correspondence theory of truth. So what it means, so we're talking about what it means for something to be true. What does it mean for something to be true? And with the correspondence theory, something is true if it corresponds to reality in the way the statement that the proposition says it does. So snow is white is true, right? If I say snow is white is true, I could take you outside. I can go up into the mountains right now. There's a snowstorm going on up there. And I can point at the snow and be like, look, it's white. So, therefore, the statement, snow is white, is true, right? Something is true if it corresponds to reality, right? Mammals have fur or hair, right? Is true, because every mammal has fur or hair, right? Depending on... what is it? That in Chinese, I think. It's the same character, by the way, for hair and fur in Chinese. In English, we don't say this is fur. You know, we say it's hair. Right? But in Chinese, it's Mao, right? Like Chairman Mao. Chairman Mao means Chairman Fur. Okay. I could be right on that one. It's been a while since I took Mandarin. So it is true that all mammals have fur/hair, because you can go out there and you can look at them and observe them, and you're like, look, they all of them, even dolphins, have a little scraggly hair, right? You guys with me on this? So correspondence theory, I think, is the easiest one to understand, right? Because it's like, look, there it is. It corresponds to reality, you know. I have at least 3 books on my bookshelf. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. Yep, it's true. Coherence theory. What about hairless cats? I don't know. What about hairless cats? So, coherence theory is the notion that something is true because it fits in with your other beliefs. Okay? So if you know, if you know that different things are true, where's my mouse? There it is. Okay. If you know that A is true, and you know that B is true, and you know that C is true, and D coheres with them, D matches what we know, then D is true also. So, and this is interesting if you study neuroscience, because this is kind of how the brain works. You've got a giant collection of thoughts in your head, and your brain knows which of them are true and which of them are false. And if somebody tells you something that matches your other beliefs, the brain accepts it, generally speaking. Like, Republicans are inclined to think that Democrats are bad, and Democrats are inclined to think that Republicans are bad. And so when people hear something bad about politicians on the other side, they're inclined to believe it. And when they hear something good about something on their side, they're inclined not to believe it, unless the facts become overwhelming, right? In which case, if some new fact shows up that, your favorite politician, where's my thing? Let's say some new fact shows up that doesn't cohere, then you get this sort of frisson or tension. It's like, all right, this fact doesn't agree with all the other guys. Then it tends to get rejected unless this guy gets so much evidence piled up on it. Then what happens is you reject that former web of beliefs, and then you start constructing a new set of beliefs that cohere with each other. So, there's a certain amount of evidence for coherence theory in neuroscience, right? In cognitive science, because that's kind of how our brains work, right? We sort of accept new ideas that match things that we have already. And this is also very common in math, right? So in math, you start off with different, let's say you're doing geometry, right? There's a Euclid has a set of axioms, and then you prove things to be true because they cohere to those axioms. Like 2 parallel lines, 2 parallel lines cannot touch, right? That would be one of the axioms of Euclidean geometry. And then you can go out there and you can have points and circles, and they construct lines and tangent lines and all this kind of stuff, and all these things they prove to be true. They prove using the things they know to be true, the axioms. You guys understand? So coherence is used a lot in math, and also sort of the way our brains work. There's a certain amount of similarity to how our brains work. Okay. Third theory is, so the first theory is correspondence. Something is true, if it corresponds to reality, right? Second, coherence is it's true if it matches what we know to be true. Pragmatic theory is something is true when it has material benefits. So gravity is true because if I were to jump off a building, I would die, and that'd be bad for me. And so gravity is real. I don't need to know about if it's gravity waves or graviton particles, or I don't need to know the actual mechanics of gravity, and scientists still don't really know, because there's this problem with making quantum mechanics and general relativity mesh with each other. Like, they don't work together very well. And a pragmatist would say, like, who cares? Who cares if general relativity and quantum mechanics don't work together? If I throw a rock, it'll move on a curve, right? And whether or not that's due to the curvature of space-time or due to graviton particles or something else does not matter. The upshot is, gravity just is however it is, and we need to work around it. We can build airplanes and elevators and things like that. And so basically, the pragmatist says, the pragmatist says, let's not worry too much about things. It's one way of putting it. I've got a book called The Pragmatist Reader, and it's essays by different pragmatist philosophers, and it's called The American Philosophy, because it's like, all right, who cares, which is right? I'm still not going to jump off a building. I can still engineer things that work with gravity despite not understanding it. That which is true is that which is beneficial, is another way of putting pragmatism. Okay. So it's a weird theory because, like, what religion is right? You know what I mean? And so a pragmatist would be like, well, whichever religion's right is the one that benefits you the most. And then, okay, well, what does it mean to benefit you the most? Well, if you include theories of the afterlife, well, you can't really account for that, but you can look at the current world and be like, all right, well, these people seem to be doing pretty well, so I'll be that religion. That would be a pragmatist approach towards religion. The guy who founded pragmatism, William James, he was torn up. He was torn up between, he didn't know if determinism or free will was correct. He didn't know. And what he said was, if you don't know if something's true, then choose the answer that benefits you the most. So he's like, science can't tell if this is right or if this is right. But you know what? My life will be a lot happier if I believe that free will exists. If I believe that I have moral agency, if I believe that I have control over my destiny, that makes me a lot happier. Because he was plunged into like a 5-year depression because he thought science kind of shows that determinism is real. And then he realized, well, maybe science doesn't actually show that. Maybe it's a little unclear. And so maybe I'll just choose to believe in free will. And he did. And that snapped him out of his depression. So William James is the father of American psychology. He was a Harvard professor. And he's also the founder of pragmatism, the philosophy of pragmatism, along with Charles Sanders Peirce, one of his friends. And so that's pragmatism. Choose. You don't know whether determinism or free will is true, but free will make me happy. Determinism will make me sad. I will pick free will. All right, so that was 3 of them, and then we got 3 more. Like I said, 5 theories of truth, but you'll see the last one. I'm not really gonna justify. We'll get it. So option number 4 is, I use the free will to believe in the free will. Yeah, exactly. Use the stones to destroy the stones. Consensus theory of truth. So consensus theory of truth. Things are true because we agree it to be true. A group agrees it to be true, right? Oftentimes used in politics. This is true because everybody in our political party thinks it's true. Yeah. And the fact that we've switched our position on it 3 times in the past 100 years doesn't matter. It's true because we believe it now, right? And so consensus theory is used a lot in politics. It's used in definitions, right? So the difference between AIDS and HIV is AIDS is the syndrome created. It's the autoimmune deficiency syndrome created by the HIV virus, the human immunodeficiency virus. AIDS and HIV are not equivalent terms. People in common usage use them equivalently, but they're not. One is a disease caused by a virus, right? And like COVID-19, it's SARS-CoV, is the name of the virus. COVID's the disease caused by the SARS-CoV virus, right? They're technically not the same thing. And so consensus theory is used a lot in definitions. And definitions, if you want to talk about boring things that people will get angry about if you want to talk about utterly uninteresting things that people will absolutely stand on a hill and die on, it's definitions, right? What does it mean? What does it mean to what does it mean to be an atheist, right? What does it mean to be an atheist? Does it mean you don't believe in God, or does it mean that you believe there is no God? That, and that sounds almost the same thing, right? Does it mean you don't believe in God, or does it mean that you believe there's no God or gods, let's say? Right? Sounds very, very similar. And people will go so angry on both sides and just stand on their hill and die on it, over their correct definition of choice. And definitions usually come about through some sort of consensus. Whether it comes through popular usage or through, experts or dictionary, right, is also something that people hotly debate. Does the dictionary control definitions, or do people control definitions and the dictionaries pick up on it? Or is it both? Right? Like in some countries, like in France, they have the Académie Française, which actually says this is what words mean. This is grammar. You cannot use it otherwise. If you use it otherwise, you're wrong, right? And in English, English is one of the more bizarre languages out there. It's this weird, kind of situation. But one way or the other, definitions come about through consensus, right? Either the experts in the field say this is what a word means. HIV and AIDS are not the same thing. Don't use them interchangeably. If you try using them interchangeably in a scientific conference, you'll probably not get your paper published, right? It's a consensus view, and the consensus will be like, no, you used it wrong. You're not getting published. Bring balance to the force, not leave it in darkness. But at the same time, like for words like what does it mean to be an atheist, the people will sit there and argue vociferously and endlessly over whether the definition means one thing or another, and it's always the definition their group believes, of course. Okay, fifth and not final, even though I said five. The fifth and not final is the deflationary theory of truth. So if you said Star Wars is a good movie, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I'm not actually saying anything very meaningful. I'm just saying I agree with you. So deflationary theory of truth is the notion that when I say that's true, it just means I agree with you. This is a white pill bottle, and you guys go, that's true. You're just agreeing with me that this is a pill bottle. So it's a fairly simple theory of truth that basically says there's, it's just a emotion or an opinion. There's different ways of saying it, where you're just expressing agreement. And if you say that's false, then you're just saying I disagree. You may believe this to be white and green, but I believe it's pink. It's just my belief. There's no absolute truth. It's just opinions. And so, there's my mouse. There is no absolute big truth, just opinions. And then finally we have the Marxist theory of truth. And so the Marxist theory of truth is that which is true is that which helps the revolution. That which is false is that which hinders the revolution. And you might think, well, that's 100 years out of date, right? Yeah. Again, in politics, very, very common. Very common that things that benefit my political party are true. Things that benefit the other political party are false. Very, very commonly used in politics. And if you hear me saying politics a lot, well, politics kind of live in a different world than the real world, right? So there's a great essay called Pravda Means Truth, in which talks about in Soviet Russia what truth actually means. And truth means things that greater truth is things that are politically correct, which is actually not the what we call politically correct nowadays is people not being able to use certain words and things like that. But that's not actually what politically correct meant. Originally, in Soviet Russia, politically correct means that you were in line with the beliefs of the party, right? That's what it means to be politically correct, is that your beliefs are lined up with the beliefs of the party. If you're politically incorrect, then you are disagreeing with the party, and depending on which time period of the USSR, sometimes it's straight to the gulag, with you, and sometimes not. You went to gulag, yeah, right. And so there's little truth. Little truth is the boring factual details that actually may be true. For example, the actual production numbers of the number of bathtubs we're making per year might be going down, but that doesn't look good for the party. And so the truth that we'll print and publish in the newspapers is that bathtub production is through the roof. And we don't let little details like the fact that bathtub production is actually down get in the way of the narrative. Okay? And this, unless you think that I'm just picking on the Soviet Union, in America, we definitely do the same thing. For example, one economist worked for the Department of Labor in America, and he worked for the division within the Department of Labor that administered the minimum wage law. And everybody who worked in the department administering the minimum wage law loved the minimum wage. Why? Because it paid their salary. And so he's like, hey, it'd be really cool if we did a study on the effects of minimum wage and see if it actually is as cool as everybody thinks it is. And they're like, no, don't do that, because what if your study turned up that the minimum wage is bad? Then we'd be out of a job. And so he did the study anyway, and he found that's a whole story. But the minimum wage laws in America were implemented for racist reasons. I don't know if people know this. The after the Civil War and leading into like World War I time, past the Gilded Age, a lot of laborers from the South, a lot of black laborers from the South were moving to the North and taking the jobs of the white people there. And so they passed minimum wage laws so that black people couldn't undercut white people on labor. And so, it was a representative from Long Island who was like, no, we need to protect white jobs. And so the minimum wage law was done because if you paid everybody the same amount, you could be free to be racist, right? Whereas if you didn't have minimum wage laws, then being a racist would economically harm you. And so the minimum wage law was literally passed so that people could continue to discriminate against black people in Long Island, or nationwide. He was a representative from Long Island. And so this economist did the study, and the Department of Labor didn't like it very much. And so, like I said, the party line is oftentimes considered absolute, and little details like facts and things like that they're brushed under the rug, they're ignored, they won't be acknowledged, things like that. So, so that's a whole bag of fish, the whole that whole bit of things. But Marxist theory of truth is used absolutely, and I don't consider it one of the 5 theories of truth from philosophy. It's kind of a bonus 6th one. But these 5 plus the Marxist theory are what you're going to need to know for the midterms and final. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post onto Canvas a quiz, and I'll probably put up a quiz after your textbook readings are done. Right now you only have to read section 1.1 and 1.2. A lot of people only read 1.1 and are like, why did I not get 100%? Because you have to read 1.1 and 1.2 for the textbook readings. You don't have to submit the supplemental work that you can do on paper. That's just for your own benefit. Try doing it and see if you can, because truth tables are going to be all over the midterms and finals. Every midterm and final, I put truth table questions on it. And then the 5 theories of truth plus 1, 5 plus 1 theories of truth, I use a lot as well. So I'll put up a quiz that'll give example claims, right? So like if I say I know that it is true that dogs usually have 4 legs because I have observed a lot of dogs and they mostly have 4 legs. What theory of truth is that? And then you'd pick one. What do you guys think? I know that it is true that dogs usually have 4 legs because I have observed many dogs. I went to the pound. I went to the FCPA. I've observed dogs, and most of them have 4 legs. What theory of truth is that? What do you guys think? That is correspondence theory. If I say I have never seen any wolves in real life, which is false. I actually have. I have petted wolves before. I am the Beastmaster. That was actually in college. They released wolves on my class in philosophy. It's a true story, by the way. Or is it? I don't know. It is. And let's say, though, that I've never observed a wolf before. But I say, you know what? I know that wolves must have hair because every other mammal that I know about has hair, and wolves having hair matches those beliefs, right? I know that dogs have hair. I know that cats have hair. I know that coyotes have hair, and wolves having hair matches those beliefs. Therefore, it's true. Yeah, that'd be coherence theory, right? If I say that I choose to I don't know whether a Mac or a PC is better, but I choose to use a Mac because it makes me feel good to spend 10 times as much on a computer than I should. What theory of truth is that? Which is actually, I think, the reasoning that a lot of people use Macs. I used to be a Mac guy, so I'm not entirely immune to this. But yeah, I'm a PC guy. I'm actually a Unix guy, and a Linux guy now. But yeah, a lot of people don't know any better, and so it makes them happy to use a Mac. So that's pragmatic theory. Consensus theory. Oh, should I just give you the answer? Let me pick a different one. It is okay. It is. It is okay to throw people in jail for revealing the truth about COVID-19 in China. We're out of time, so that'd be Marxist theory, right? It's things that advance the revolution are true. Things that hinder the revolution are false. Mr. Groot, got to go. That's true. Boom. That's deflationary theory. And then consensus theory. Everybody knows that slavery is wrong because, right. Slavery. Sorry. Consensus theory. Slavery is false. Slavery is evil is true because everybody knows that it's evil. Okay, so that is it for today, and we will pick up this exciting thing. It's actually kind of fun. Honestly, it's kind of fun, isn't it? Just thinking about the different ways of what it means to be true. We'll pick it up next time. Okay, see you guys. Peace.